Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Hey, we are back. Great to have you here, my friends. Rush Limbaugh behind the golden EIB microphone. Hump day, middle of the week. Broadcast excellence, all yours. For the next 3 hours, yet another excursion into broadcast excellence. The telephone number, if you want to be on the program, is 800-282-2882, and the email address, lrushmo@eibnet.com. I must begin the program today with an announcement of sorts. I know that a major story in the media today is, I don't know what we call it, Lewandowski Gate, Grab Gate, whatever it is, the ongoing and still blossoming controversy involving the videotape of the reporter at Michelle Fields, the Trump campaign coordinator, Corey Lewandowski, and the Trumpster himself, and what the heck happened. And my friends, I have decided that going forward, I cannot share with you my opinion on this story. And so going forward, I will not opine. I will simply tell you what the latest is, but I will not tell you what I think about it. I am taking the equivalent of the EIB network's Fifth Amendment here, because no matter what I say, I am convinced people cannot listen anymore. And no matter what I say, it is going to be misconstrued into one of two things. Either I'm defending Lewandowski, or I am trying to destroy Trump in order to help Ted Cruz. And I have done neither. Said neither. Yesterday, all I did on this program was to review for people who may not have been able to see the video because it was happening while the program was on the air, just telling people what had happened. And I commented on how much time CNN was spending on this. And I talked about how they were stacking guests. And all of that became Limbaugh defends Lewandowski. Limbaugh sells out conservatism. Limbaugh traitorous to the cause. Limbaugh supports reprobate a-hole. Limbaugh, whatever. And since I didn't do any of that, what? I didn't do any of that. I don't even know Lewandowski. What I know is everybody apparently hates the guy. What I know is everybody wants to try to destroy the Trump campaign that is not part of the Trump campaign. I know that includes many people in the media. They will take the occasion of any event that pops up to try to destroy and bring down the Trump campaign, which is politics, and it's fine. But I have determined here that because tensions are so tight, everybody is wound up to such a feverish pitch here that no matter what I say, it is misunderstood and is not helpful. And so on this story going forward, I have no opinion. We have the latest in sound bites. We have the latest in the news on it. I'm even reluctant to just tell you what the latest is because of how that's going to be misinterpreted. And this may not be the only subject about which I may have to muzzle my own self here and silence myself, at least from the standpoint of opinions, because it's apparently impossible to be correctly, properly understood. So that's that. We have news items out the wazoo today. The program is loaded with this stuff on the Democrat side. There's stuff that has nothing to do with the campaigns. New York Daily News has a story that this is kind of funny. Finally figured out that the Democrat campaign's rigged. New York Daily News. If Bernie Sanders wins the New York Democrat primary, superdelegates are going to back Hillary anyway. The opening line in the story, maybe the system really is rigged. You think? The whole thing, the Democrat primary, has been rigged from the get-go. It's been rigged since the Democrat campaign of 2008 ended. You can go back to the archives of this very program and you can find me assuring everybody that no matter what, Bernie Sanders was not going to be the nominee of the Democrat Party. And nothing has changed. Ruth Marcus, Washington Post. I'm just going to run through some of these things headline-wise, and I'm going to do my best to get into all of these today. Why a no indictment of Hillary Clinton would still be a problem for America. Ruth Marcus, Washington Post. She's upset that if there's no indictment, the FBI, this Comey guy, he had better clear her. He had better call a press conference, and he had better tell everybody that they never had a single shred of evidence. If the FBI allows this to go on and on and on, and if there's no indictment and they don't do anything, and allow people just to assume that Hillary is guilty, but that the Democrats are not going to pull a trigger because of partisanship, that's a disservice. So if there's nothing there, Comey needs to come forth and say so. From a publication calling itself Orb magazine, as the Clinton campaign falters, tension erupts between Bill's crew and Huma's crew over who has final say. North Carolina has become ground zero in the latest iteration of the culture war, and it's absolutely absurd. We have a conservative governor in Georgia, Nathan Deal, who literally caved to the threat of economic pressure brought about by American corporate interests. Same kind of thing is happening in North Carolina, where special considerations for 0.5% of the population seem to be dominating the structuring passage of laws today. And it's all about lesbians and gays and bisexuals and transgenders and who wants to use what bathroom on a particular day of the week or at a particular time of day. And nobody's got the right to tell somebody who thinks they're a woman on Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon that they can't use the women's bathroom. And the NBA says, if you're going to tell somebody who thinks they're a woman at 2 o'clock on Tuesday, who got up as a man, by the way, but at 2 o'clock on Tuesday thinks she's a woman, you're going to tell her she can't use the women's restroom, we're pulling the All-Star game out of Charlotte. Fine. Meanwhile, have you heard about Saudi Arabia? You haven't heard of the Saudi royal family wants to begin summary executions of all gays, lesbians, and transgenders as a means of shutting it down. How many American corporations do business with Saudi Arabia, starting with big oil, starting with big Silicon Valley, starting with big defense contractor? Tell me, how many of them do business with Saudi Arabia and would never once threaten the royal family? Let's just see what happens. It's all over the news. You're looking at me like you haven't heard about this. I don't care what Corey Lewandowski thinks about this. I am not opining on it. Has Lewandowski spoken about what's going on in Saudi Arabia anyway? I don't care, even if he has. You can't suck me into this, Snerdley. I have announced the self-imposed ban on myself on this, and there's no trick that anybody can employ. But seriously, Saudi Arabia, the Saudi royal family, which, by the way, the Saudi royal family are the official guardians of Islam, Mecca. And, folks, they are openly saying execute all known and discovered gays, lesbians, transgenders, bisexuals, as a means of shutting it down. They are the head honchos, if you will, of Islam. They are the guardians of the sacred mosques in Mecca. How many American politicians, how many worldwide politicians, particularly on the left Democrat Party, will refuse to tolerate any criticism of Islam? We cannot associate Islam with terrorism. No. Islam is the religion of peace. Here in the headquarters, summary execution of gays, lesbians. And how many American corporations will pull out? How many will condemn it? How many will tell the Saudis, you better not do that, or else? Like they will tell the governor of Georgia, like they will tell the legislature of North Carolina. A story at thehill.com. What do you think of this? Majority of Republicans support path to citizenship. This is a poll from an outfit called the Public Religion Research Institute, the PRRI. Have you ever heard of them? The PRRI are a notoriously left-wing group that has ongoing research partnerships with the Brookings Institution and the Berkeley Center for Religion, Peace, and World Affairs at Georgetown University. And they have just released a poll saying that a majority of Republicans now support amnesty, now support a path to citizenship. We'll see how that manifests itself. A Nevada candidate for public office says a dingy Harry told him to quit and not even go for it because he's a Muslim. And, quote, a Muslim cannot win this race, unquote. Dingy Harry, a former Senate Majority Leader, who in the Democrat Party and on the American left can do no wrong, is telling a guy, don't run, you're a Muslim, you can't win. By the way, what would you think if Trump chose Newt as his vice presidential nominee?
America's most listened to talk radio host. Rush Limbaugh. On the EIB network.
Did you hear that story recently? Maybe you saw the headline, "No, you can't carry a loaded weapon into the Republican National Convention." Did you see that story? I did, and I know a number of you did. From thehill.com, it turns out that the guy who authored a petition to allow open carry of guns at the Republican National Convention says he did it, to test the limits of the party's support for the Second Amendment. The petition, which has attracted national attention, reads as if it was written by a supporter of gun rights. Instead, the guy behind the petition is a Democrat who plans on supporting Hillary. His name is Jim. He's from Philadelphia. He reached out to thehill.com in a phone interview, said he published the petition to call attention to what he sees as a discrepancy in the Republicans' position on gun rights. So here you have a guy. The way this works, the story's out there that somebody wants an open carry permit for the Republican National Convention. Everybody goes, no, that's crazy. Turns out it's a Democrat playing a trick. After the impact of the news, after the impact of the story has been felt, then we learn the truth of it. Sorry, cannot play audio soundbite number 20. I just received a new audio soundbite here. New movie trailer shows illegal aliens being gunned down while audio of Trump is playing. I cannot play this audio soundbite. It's part of my Fifth Amendment, EIB Fifth Amendment ban on uttering any opinions about the Trump campaign. People don't hear what I say. They misunderstand. So the safest thing to do is to not say anything about it. Well, I'll tell you what it is. I mean, it's a guy. What we have here, a Spanish language ad made to look like a movie trailer, was released for, it's a new movie actually called Desierto. And it juxtaposes audio from a speech by Trump with scenes of Mexican immigrants being gunned down while crossing into the U.S. They actually made a movie out of this, and they've taken a section of it as a trailer. They put Trump's voice talking about immigration and a number of other things over Mexicans being shot at the border. But I can't tell you what I think of that. Well, I could, but I refuse to. You just have to stick with the fact that it is out there. Yesterday, the Washington Post had a story, a column, by Michael Gerson, the former speechwriter for George W. Bush, essentially claiming that I am destroying conservatism. That my quote-unquote blessing of the Trump campaign, my blessing of Donald Trump, is killing conservatism. I didn't bother commenting on it because it was silly, and I guess I could. I think I saved it here somewhere. But anyway, this was brought up last night on the Fox Business Network. Charlie Payne, his show called Making Money, he had Tammy Bruce, who herself is a talk radio host, a Fox News contributor, and he asks her about this. He says, look, Washington Post story, Rush Limbaugh's blessing of Trump is killing conservatism. He's one of the few well-known conservative radio guys who is neutral. He obviously likes Ted Cruz. He said some nice things about Trump. He doesn't condemn the Trump campaign. What about it, Tammy? Is Limbaugh killing conservatism?
Well, look, I've been agnostic as well. We understand for many Trump supporters, this is about an existential issue for the country, that if the country doesn't exist as we know it, then what good is conservatism? And if conservatism is so weak and has been so undefended, why would just Donald Trump be the one to destroy it all?
So her basic point is that conservatism is going to survive no matter what. But when you start throwing in blame like this, I mean, this argument about who's responsible for Trump, the very people responsible for it are those trying to shift that responsibility in the form of blame to others. But again, that's off limits here on the EIB network. I do have something, however, that I want to share with you. There was a town hall meeting in Wisconsin last night on CNN, and there was some news that was made out of this thing. All three Republican presidential candidates have now backed away from the pledge they all made to support the eventual nominee. None of the three remaining Republican candidates would guarantee last night that they would support the eventual nominee for president, departing from previous promises to do so and injecting new turmoil into an already tumultuous contest. Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, and John Kasich were each given a chance during a CNN town hall in Milwaukee to definitively state that they would support the nominee, and all three declined to renew their pledge. That was just as recently as March 3rd in a Fox News debate that all three said they would support the nominee. Most of the drive-by media are only reporting that Trump is refusing to promise support for the nominee, but all three of them have basically backed away from their pledge. This was always going to be the case. You know, when these pledges first started flying, I thought, the only guy, I'm sorry, I can't say that. I just thought when all of this started happening that none of this was going to hold up. Start making promises like this way back last fall, whatever the first debate was, August 6th, I think, August 3rd or August 6th. And that's when Bret Baier asked all these guys in the first Fox News debate, Trump, sorry, I can't say it. They all took the pledge. And I'm watching this. This is not going to hold up. We're too soon into this. There's too much tumult yet to come. There are too many feelings yet to be hurt. There's too many people waiting to be offended or going to be offended or angered or what have you. And it was almost when Baier asked the question, the responses were practically instantaneous and automatic, which made them formulaic. But look, there's something interesting here. We had the town hall meeting, and I have two different stories about the town hall meeting, and they are completely different takes on what happened last night. One of them is at Breitbart, and the other one is by Daniel Horowitz at the Conservative Review. And not entirely, but I mean largely different interpretations and points of interest cited by both publications as to what happened last night. We'll come back and review this right after this. Most of my brain tied behind my back today, just to make it fair. Rush Limbaugh, 800-282-2882. Great to have you with us. Okay, the town hall meeting last night, Breitbart News. The headline, crowd boos when Donald Trump mentions Scott Walker and Paul Ryan in Janesville, Wisconsin, which is Ryan's hometown. Donald Trump knocked Scott Walker, who endorsed Cruz earlier in the day, and the crowd booed when Trump mentioned Scott Walker's name. Trump says total state debt, $45 billion, very high, one of the higher ones, 20,000 fewer people in the labor force than 7 years ago. Even though the population has grown, Trump stated as he read aloud statistics about Wisconsin. Trump, he said that he was not sure if the stats were accurate, but he went on to say, Walker not doing a very good job, and the audience cheers. The audience booed Scott Walker, the governor, and Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, in his hometown, Janesville, Wisconsin. Trump was mocking Walker. See, he doesn't look like a motorcycle guy to me. Walker rides bikes. Trump said unemployment rate, they're down 20%. That can't be possible. 800,000 food stamp recipients, middle class hit very, very hard due to loss of manufacturing jobs. Goes on to talk about how many jobs lost to Mexico since NAFTA. He said that both, I'm just doing a juxtaposition. Hang on just a second for a different take on this. Trump goes on to rip both of them, Walker and Ryan, because they support the Trans-Pacific Partnership, Obama's massive Pacific Rim trade deal that he says will make NAFTA look like a baby. And Breitbart reports that the audience loved it all, ate it up, cheered Trump left and right, and just booed Walker and booed Paul Ryan. And Breitbart concludes, hey, this is a great night for Trump. It was a kick night for Trump because these guys, he was able to personify them as members of the establishment, what he's running against, and the audience ate it up. It's also noted in the Breitbart story that Dave Weigel of the Washington Post noted that at least 4,000 people were in line to get into the venue to hear Trump speak, but only held about 1,000 people. So now this was actually a Trump rally, not the town hall meeting. But here is, let me move over here now to Daniel Horowitz at the Conservative Review.com. And the headline is Trump running to make socialism great again. This is campaign season's come full circle. The closing argument of the GOP frontrunner Donald Trump, the man who has garnered so much support under the guise of being an anti-establishment candidate, has now exhibited the palest of pale pastel characteristics of the very establishment that voters hate. So Horowitz claims that Trump is exactly what he's running against. He is the guy he's campaigning against. That he's every bit the establishment type of person as the people he's criticizing. That he thinks just like the establishment people. And Horowitz then says, one of the more insightful questions asked at last night's town hall in Milwaukee was directed at Trump by a woman who wanted to know the top 3 functions of government. Trump initially answered security, security, security. But then, Mr. Horowitz writes, Trump struggled to name any other core functions. He couldn't think of any. But then he could. And then Trump settled on health care and education as 2 of 3 top functions of government. Health care and education. Mr. Horowitz writes, this is a man running for president who, if he wins the nomination, will debate Hillary Clinton in the fall over the fundamental role of government. It appears there won't be much of a debate because there won't be much of a difference between Trump or Hillary. Speaking like a typical establishment Republican who is too diffident in his own views to correctly define the role of government and how it helps the average person, Trump continued to defend federally controlled health care. And then a transcript of questioning from Anderson Cooper to Trump is published here. The indication here is that Trump doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to policy. He doesn't know anything. He's just, it's not that he's dumb, he's just ignorant. He hasn't studied it, doesn't really care about it. And so when he doesn't know, he relies on his instincts. And his instincts, according to Horowitz at the Conservative Review, take him right to massive big government running everything. And in this, we should all be worried. Everybody should be frightened because Trump is not who he claims to be. An example, Anderson Cooper says to Trump, so in terms of federal government role, the federal government role, You're saying security, but you also say health care and education should be provided by the federal government. Trump. Well, yeah, those are two of the things. Sure. I mean, there are obviously many things. Housing, providing great neighborhoods. Horowitz writes, yeah, for good measure, Trump tosses in housing. Free housing, great neighborhoods, Bernie Sanders all the way. When Anderson Cooper questioned him further about his support for these traditionally Democrat views, Trump explained that, of course, the states should control education. Mr. Horowitz writes, thereby contradicting himself again within 10 seconds. And the column, the story is pretty much devoted to this theme, that Trump gets tripped up when asked specific questions that it is assumed anybody running for president would be able to rattle off. Give me 3 primary functions of government. If you stutter around and can't come up with any, then you don't know anything. And then when you think about it, and because you're stuck here, then you come up with 3 things and end up sounding exactly like Hillary Clinton on it. Well, government's got to provide housing, government's got to provide health care, government's got to provide education. It is therefore concluded that Trump, not only is he not a conservative, he may as well be a Democrat, masquerading as somebody who is not. So those are the 2 juxtapositions here and there are many more than that. But these are 2 juxtapositions of what happened last night. We have the Breitbart piece where Trump was a hero, and he went in there and he just jammed Walker and he jammed Ryan, and his audience ate it up. And Trump was on message, and the crowd loved it, and he was really riffing great on anti-establishment. Go over here to conservativereview.com, and you get a report on Trump as basically an incompetent, unaware, know-nothing, who was exposed into exhibiting the undeniable fact that he is a liberal at heart. I don't know what I think about that. I'm just telling you what happened.
Doing the work that the mainstream American media just won't do. Rush on the EIB network.
And we're going to get to the phones here in just a second, but first, is this an editorial? So this is an endorsement? Okay, it's the Wisconsin Journal Sentinel in Milwaukee. Opinion editorial. I assume this is an endorsement. John Kasich, the GOP's best hope, can win and govern. After terrorists murdered 35 people in Brussels last week, Donald Trump and Ted Cruz competed to see who could fashion an American police state response more quickly. Trump demanded the U.S. close its borders to Muslims and torture Muslim captives. I don't think Trump said that, but I can't correct this. Be misinterpreted. Cruz suggested forebodingly that police patrols were needed to secure Muslim neighborhoods. Well, that again is not entirely true, but moving on. And John Kasich, one guy says we should patrol Muslim neighborhoods, as they're quoting Kasich here. One guy says we should patrol Muslim neighborhoods. The other says we should withdraw from NATO and have a religious test on who comes into the country. You think we're going to fix problems with these approaches? If you want to find out about the radicals inside the Muslim community, you frankly have to ask a Muslim. We have to have communication between the civilized world, all of us together against these murderers, and that takes U.S. leadership. And the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel says that Kasich is the guy. Kasich had a smart, pragmatic answer to Brussels, they say here. He is, in fact, the only thoughtful candidate with a fundamental belief in long-standing democratic principles who remains standing in the GOP primary field. Our editorial board, they write here, our editorial board normally avoids recommendations for political office, but the Republican presidential campaign this year demands a stand. We recommend John Kasich in the Wisconsin Republican primary on April 5th. Now, to get the nomination, Kasich must win it on the floor of the convention because, they write, he has no mathematical chance of winning outright before then. They don't tell anybody why. Nobody's voted for him. Sorry. Anyway, there you have it. The Wisconsin Journal-Sentinel in Milwaukee endorsing John Kasich. Now to the phones. Mary in Barrington, Illinois. You're first today. Great to have you on the program. Hello.
Hi, thanks, Rush.
You bet.
You know, this Michelle Field story is just driving me crazy. Correct me if I'm wrong, but she's a reporter covering presidential politics and approached a presidential candidate, it sounds like, within the circle of Secret Service that was escorting him out. And she has a problem with being pulled away from that situation. I just don't get it. It feels to me like she's really playing the woman card here and using what she perceives as her power to accomplish something political.
What do you think that is?
Dump Trump. Get rid of Trump.
Oh, that's what
this... They can't seem to take him down. So, you know, a good soldier would go for the first in command, which would be Corey Lewandowski.
Right. Well, that's interesting.
Why, thank you.
You bet. I'm glad you called. Thank you so much. It's great to hear from you, Mary. Who's next? Yeah, what's it? Who's next? Give me a great. Brian in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Great to have you on the program. Hello.
How you doing, Rush? It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Same here, Brian. I'm glad you made it through today.
Thank you for taking my call.
You bet. Anytime.
The reason why I want to call is, first, I'd like to say is that I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a pro-Cruz guy. But I know that you've been taking a lot of heat, especially from us pro-Cruz people. And for a while, I was one of those people who are saying, you know, what's Rush doing? Rush is doing Trump. It was starting to upset me. And then I've been listening to you for about 10 years, and I started doing exactly what you said, which is you take people at their word. So I started to do the same thing with you. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, Trump has brought all this new pizzazz and appeal to politics in general. And if I were you, and I'm always promoting conservatism, I would take that opportunity to promote conservatism to potential voters that may have never even heard thoughts and views on conservatism. Do I guess, have an idea of to where you're going with this? Because I feel that you just take a lot of heat, and I was one of those people that were upset until I started thinking about us conservatives. We already know who we're going to vote for.
Wait. What do you mean I'm taking a lot of heat?
Meaning, like, for instance, yesterday you had a couple callers that were giving you grief. I think it was a gentleman from Texas saying, you know, he had to turn you off a couple times because, you know, he just got tired.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. So I was just thinking that if I were you, and I truly believe in conservatism, and as you say, inspiring a generation of voters, you know, that I guess my purpose would be to not to talk to the people who already understand conservatism, believe in it wholeheartedly, maybe those Democrats that are crossing over, to get them to understand. Because
so you think you think that's what I should be doing but haven't been doing?
I think that that's exactly what you've been doing, and rather than, you know, myself and other conservatives that were saying, you know, what's Rush doing, you know, I actually took a step back and I figured if I were you and I had, you know, millions of listeners every single day, and my goal is to, you know, promote conservatism, what better way to do it than rather than, you know, the Cruz supporters, they know what conservatism is inside and out. But the new voters that are coming for Trump, explaining it to them in a way like that got me, you know, 10 years ago when I first started listening to you.
That's very insightful of you, Brian. I have to say. It's very, you've been reading between the lines out there. You've been studying it.
And that's another thing. I try to listen to you intently, and I listen to you as pretty much every day. And, you know, like I said, I was upset with you for a little while until I started to read in between the lines. And just to the fellow Cruz supporters, you know, the never Trump people, I honestly think that Rush is doing us a great service by informing many more people.
Can I let me jump in because time is dwindling. You know, one of the I'll be honest with you folks, one of the most frustrating things about doing this is that I there's 3 hours a day. There's 15 hours a week. And then you add the weeks. It's a lot to expect. I'll admit, it's a lot to expect people to remember things that I say, which is why I repeat them sometimes. Particularly the things that I think are important or the things about which I'm really passionate, I repeat them. And I always beg your indulgence when I do so. There's a thing with the written word. If you read it, you could read the most outrageous thing, but just because it's published, you're going to give it credibility. This is spoken word, which is why, by the way, everything I say here is transcribed and is available at rushlimbaugh.com. On the free side, in most cases, you don't have to cross the paywall. You can go read the transcripts of what I say. You can actually read what I say. And one of the things I said way, way back, and I wish people remembered these things because it would help explain, if you could remember what I said back in October or September or November, it would help you to understand what's going on today. As I say, I realize that is a maybe unrealistic expectation I have. So let me just remind you, when Trump first showed up and this thing that he's doing took off, and people started asking me why I wasn't condemning it, I had a very specific answer that had nothing to do with ideology, had nothing to do with conservatism, liberalism, any ism. It had to do that Trump was demonstrating that all the things Republicans and conservatives fear that makes them shut up, you're seeing you don't have to be afraid of them. You don't have to shut up. There was a great lesson being taught, a great demonstration going on. And that was the original. I'm out of time. I've got to take the break here. I'll continue this.
Nationwide.
Rush on the EIB network.
I know, it's crazy. I'm asking people to remember what I said back in October when very few people even listened to an entire 3 hours and remember what they heard. But that's not your problem, folks. That's mine. And I'll deal with it in my own way. We'll be back. Don't go away. And we're right back at it. Having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. Rush Limbaugh here at the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. Here's the telephone number if you want to be on the program. It's 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. Have you seen this photo that this millennial guy took with the hijacker on board that? You know, ever since the advent of social media, Facebook and Twitter, well, not since the advent, but I guess pretty close to it, those of you who have listened regularly are well aware, I hope you remember, of my considered warnings about the potential problems that could erupt from this. And at the time, what I noticed was that everybody on these social media websites was just dying to be famous, doing anything they could to be noticed. And I thought I knew why. I mean, I was able to analyze why people wanted fame. They see fame presented by entertainment media, for example, and it really looks cool. What is fame? If you watch TMZ, if you watch Entertainment Tonight, or any of these other, the E! Entertainment Network, if you read certain entertainment websites, what do you see? You see a bunch of famous people who are all beautiful living a constant party. They're constantly on yachts, or they are constantly clubbing, or they are constantly on the red carpet. They're constantly getting great things written about them. The men are surrounded by a bevy, always, of scantily clad women who are throwing themselves at them. The women are the epitome of beauty, and every woman wishes she would be like those that she sees, they see portrayed in entertainment media. In entertainment media, nobody gets ripped except in the National Enquirer. But E! Entertainment Network, the Entertainment Tonight show, all these networks just do nothing but fawning puff piece stories. And they go out of their way to make these people crucially important. They're important on such things as climate change, like Leonardo DiCaprio. They're important in all kinds of ways. They have it all. Their lives are the epitome of perfection. And so everybody who wants to matter in their life, and most people know that they're not anywhere near in the same league as these famous people, but they want a taste of it. And so they go to social media and they take pictures of themselves and they publish them all. And they vomit every bit of personal information about themselves, and they relish having followers because that's as close as they can get to fame. And it becomes something almost like an out-of-body experience. It's unhealthy. It is abnormal. It's not productive. And the whole thing is very seductive. And I saw this coming decades ago. And my fear was that it was going to steer people into these sybaritic pursuits of life and the non-substantive, totally zero accomplishment aspects of life. Just hedonism, constant sybaritic pursuits, and ultimately people concocting fantasies that they actually, in their minds, live in each and every day. And things that matter, that really matter, don't register with them. And things that don't really matter at all in life end up taking primacy, superiority as quests, as ambitions. And it's reached a pinnacle here. An Egypt Air passenger who was among the hostages held during that 6-hour hijacking drama convinced this lunatic terrorist, who himself, I guess, was lovelorn. He had seized the plane. He was holding everybody hostage. He convinced the would-be terrorist to pose for a picture amidst all this. His name was Ben Innes, and he said, I'm not sure why I did it. I just threw caution to the wind while trying to stay cheerful in the face of adversity, he told the UK Sun. I figured if his bomb was real, nothing to lose anyway, so I took a chance to get a closer look at it. This guy's from Leeds. He is a 26-year-old health and safety auditor. Safety auditor. It means this guy is auditing safety procedures under the auspices of the government at various places. He said the plane was on the runway in Cyprus, the hijacker still calling the shots, when I got one of the cabin crew to translate for me and asked if I could do a selfie with him. And the terrorist just shrugged and said, okay, so I stood by him and smiled for the camera while a stewardess took the picture. It has to be the best selfie ever, he said. What should we call the millennials now? The selfie generation? It seems to be overtaking them. Seems to be the primary thing that many of them, not all, of course, care about. And I saw the picture, and here's this guy, the terrorist, with the supposed bomb around his waist and his Coke bottle glasses, standing next to this millennial with his Ralph Lauren polo shirt. Just biggest geek smile you've ever seen. Picture being taken on board a plane that has been hijacked. And I thought, this nails it. This epitomizes every, I won't call it fear, because my ultimate hope is that young people grow out of this stuff. I'm not going to become an old fuddy-duddy, get off my lawn kind of old guy, folks. I always vowed that. But this is not psychologically healthy. Then you look out all over the country and you find out these are the people who think, these millennials, these are the people who think that the problems that exist in America today have nothing to do with the Democrat Party, nothing to do with liberalism, nothing to do with current Obama administration policy. They sadly think that the country's best days just happen to be behind us now. Their birth happened to coincide with peak America. They are a product of very poor education because that's been dominated by the left wing for generations. And so they're seeking happiness, fulfillment, and meaning in ways that really don't provide any happiness, fulfillment, or meaning. And I do hope they grow out of it. But this to me is just the epitome of what I was talking about. And look, you could say, Rush, the kids are going to grow out of it. It's 36-year-olds. Is the guy 36? What's his age here? 24, 34. He's 26. I don't know. When I was 26, it was rather expected that my feet were planted and I'd be going somewhere. I mean, if I wanted to be taken seriously, talking about careers and career paths and this kind of thing. I don't want to be too harsh. Not trying to be exhibiting a lack of understanding. My actual fears are rooted in compassion for these people, because no matter how you slice it, they do represent the future of the country. At some point, they are going to become the leaders of whatever it is they happen to be living in, whether it's in their community or in their careers or what have you. And so I just epitomized the problem. It's dangerous, but here this guy's got bragging right. Look at me, look at me, look at me. Notice me, notice me. I'm telling you, it's not healthy. All these people that want fame have no idea of the downsides of it. They never see the downside. And even when they do see the downsides of it, I'm wrong. They do see the downsides of it. They, like everybody else does, ignore that. Oh, that won't going to happen to me. And they really think this is something that's within their grasp. And it's the same people running around worried the NSA is spying on them or some other such thing. And you just want to shake them. Nobody has to spy on you. You are telling everybody who will listen everything there is to know about you. Because if truth be known, you're desperate to be known. You are seeking this fame as though it's in and of itself rewarding. And fame, for no other reason than fame, makes you a Kardashian. Now, if people aspire to that, then they do. But the fame that results, or the notoriety that results from actual achievement and success, believe me, it takes on an entirely different meaning. You treat it an entirely different way when it is not the pursuit, when it hasn't been the objective, when it's just something that happens as a result of achieving something else. It is an entirely different thing. Okay, quick time out here. We come back and more calls, audio soundbite roster on the campaign. Latest things happening there, all coming up. Sit tight. We'll be right back.
Rush Limbaugh, pointing the way
on the EIB network.
And back to the phones. Jackie in Charlottesville, Virginia. Great to have you on the program. Hello.
Hi. Thank you, Mr. Limbaugh.
You bet.
You were talking earlier about who's responsible for Trump, and everybody wants to talk about who's responsible for Trump, like it's you. I mean, you're just one person, or that it's this person. I'm responsible for Trump. Me.
How so?
I'm a middle-class person. They take us out every, 4 years?
Well, you see, here's the thing. The who's responsible for Trump argument is being advanced by the people who actually are responsible for it, who don't want to accept the blame. So they're trying to shift it to others. And implied in this discussion is that there is blame for Trump, that there's something inherently wrong with supporting Trump. There's something almost sinful about it, and therefore somebody's responsible for it, and whoever's responsible for it is whatever you want to call them, some derogatory term. Yet the people,
what about Joe the plumber? They had him out here. What was that, like 8 years ago or 4? Oh, Joe the plumber.
No, I know what you're saying. You're a supporter of Trump. You have specific reasons, and what you're saying is...
I voted for Obama twice.
Right, but you like Trump. But let me finish. I know what you're saying. You're saying you're doing this on your own. Nobody's making you do it. Nobody's influencing you to do it except Trump. Nobody is blackmailing you. Nobody has poisoned your mind. You're doing this of your own free will because you like the guy, right?
Because I think he could make a difference.
Right.
I like.
But
what
the
he
people
said.
running around trying to assign blame for you think that you're incapable of thinking on your own.
Exactly.
Incapable of making up your mind on these matters. You have to be the result. In other words, some people believe that you wouldn't think what you think if I had only criticized Trump the way they want Trump criticized.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I used to listen to you a long time ago, and then I quit listening to you, and then I started listening to you again. I am the
Which
reason
means
for
that
Trump.
you actually never went away. I mean,
Yes, I did.
Well, no, but then you
Yes,
came.
I did.
You came back.
Well, I did.
Yes. So the way we look at it here, you never really went away. I was always in your heart. I was always on your mind. You found your way back.
Well, you said something years ago about when the tsunami hit, and you said, "Trust me on this, people. They're gonna they're gonna inflate these numbers of people," and that kind of turned me off on you.
Right.
And so then I quit listening to you, and then I came back.
Because you found out I was right.
Yes, you are. You are right, because you say it like it is. And let me tell you, when you tell people, when you were saying that all we do is we just want to get mad at Muslims and we want to get mad at, we just want Trump to stick it to them. No, we don't.
I'm not. Wait a minute now.
We don't want Trump. No, but you're saying that they said that that's what we want.
Yes, it's not me saying it. That's
I
what all these
understand that.
people who are blaming me for Trump.
And that's not what we're about. We don't want to stick it to anybody. Where did the steel industry grow, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we make steel here anymore? Can you tell me that?
Yeah, I could. But you already know. I mean, that's why you're supporting Trump.
Because we need something different. We need something that's going to, and I think that he will work tirelessly.
Look, there's nobody, and I'm just going to say this flat out. There's nobody that can better explain the Trump phenomenon than me. I've been doing it since last July. I know exactly why you're voting the way you are. I know exactly what it is, and I'm not trying to put you down saying this. I'm saying this because I understand you. I know exactly where you're coming from. But even saying that, see, people assume that I am endorsing Trump when I explain why people support him. Well, how would he know that unless he thinks the same thing, is what people believe. And, of course, never said that. But I know why you support Trump. I know why, and there are probably a host of reasons why people support Trump. I understand them all. Not to say that I agree with them all or disagree with any of them. That's not the point, but I understand them. I know who the people that make this country work are. And I know what they're mad about, and I know what they're upset about, and I know what they want fixed. And a lot of that I do agree with. But I do get it. So I appreciate your call. Thanks much, Jackie. Here's Tulay. Is that how you pronounce it? What is it? Louis in Highland Park, New Jersey. Great to have you on the program. Hello.
Thank you for taking my call, Rush. My point is, you did a terrific interview with Chris Wallace a few weeks back. Excellent interview. It was interesting to watch you on the other end, fielding questions. You did a great job.
Thank you, sir.
You made a point. You said, ultimately, you believe the Republican Party will come together when the dust settles. You've said other times, we got to defeat Hillary Clinton. My question is, forget all the hullabaloo, what, went on by the town hall meeting yesterday, and it's all over the news that, all the Republicans, they're not going to support the nominee. But I think ultimately, Ted Cruz will support the nominee if it's Trump. My question to you, Rush, is if there is a contested convention and they don't parachute a third party in, it's between Trump and Cruz, and somehow Cruz has the better ground game and he wins. What do you think Trump will do? Will he accept that, or because somehow I believe he won't? I'd like to know what you think about that, because your main point to Chris Wallace was you said the party will come together, and I'm just questioning that. How do you see that if Cruz outdoes him in the ground game in the convention? How you see what you see happening?
Well, there are a whole bunch of different variables that I will throw in there in my answer to this. let's take your scenario that we don't have anybody get 1237. It goes to a contested convention, and under your hypothetical, Cruz ends up with the better organization and actually ends up with more delegates than Trump in the second or third ballot than Trump actually got, say, during the primaries. Therefore, you don't see Trump supporting Cruz in that outcome.
That's correct.
Well, now wait. Okay, I wanted to make sure that was your premise before I answer.
Yes, that's my point.
Okay. If that contest that you have just described, if Trump thinks that it has been unfair, if Trump thinks that the party stacked the deck against him and didn't give him a fair shot at acquiring the delegates on the second or third ballot, if he thinks that they wrote rules that were only punitive to him, then he may not back the nominee. But I'll tell you something else you better think about. Forget Trump. Forget what Trump does. You better be more concerned what Trump's legion of voters are going to do.
Well,
if they think their guy has been shafted, they're going to interpret that as them having been shafted. They're going to once again think the establishment has denied them, ignored them, or worse, shafted them. And then it'll depend on how Trump talks to them and what Trump's role is in the campaign going forward. There are too many unknowns to predict what's going to happen here, and I wouldn't even try at this stage. You may have heard, ladies and gentlemen, that the campaign manager, is that what Lewandowski is? Is that his actual the campaign manager? Trump's campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, either arrested, charged, written order to appear, whatever people want to say, has been charged with misdemeanor battery in an altercation with a reporter from Breitbart, former reporter Breitbart, Michelle Fields. It happened up in Jupiter, here in Florida, at the Trump golf course up there, after a Trump press conference, rather than a victory speech. Trump press conference. You've seen it by now in many different video angles. Trump is leaving the stage, an entourage behind him. The press conference was over. There were some reporters trailing along. Michelle Fields apparently asked Trump a question, at which point she was grabbed and pulled away from Trump by Corey Lewandowski, the campaign manager. This is according to witnesses in about 13,000 different angles of videotape. And she has now filed a police report some days later, and Lewandowski has been charged by the Palm Beach County State Attorney's Office with this misdemeanor battery. The max penalty is a year in prison or a year probation, and whatever fine that might be tossed out. Trump has been making the rounds. Press conference on his airplane, press conferences all over the state of Wisconsin, TV appearances defending Lewandowski. We have audio sound bites as examples of this. We'll start with Good Morning America today. David Muir, fill-in host, says, Mr. Trump, you've had a chance to watch the video. Battery or not, is it now clear to you that your campaign manager did, in fact, touch that woman?
When you read her statement, actually, she said she was jolted backwards. Someone had grabbed me tightly by the arm and yanked me down. She wasn't yanked down. She was hardly even touched. Then she goes, campaign managers aren't supposed to try and forcefully throw reporters to the ground. He didn't try to throw her to the ground. Now, when she found out there was a tape, supplied by me, by the way, I'm the one that had the tape. When she found out I had the tape, all of a sudden, perhaps she changes her tune. But I think it's a disgrace in a world where they're chopping off heads, where they're drowning people in cages. Everybody that's seen this tape that I know, and you look at Twitter, people think it's a total disgrace that she actually filed charges.
Then Muir continued to look at Trump with a perplexed look on his face, which prompted Trump to continue.
I'm going to fire him because he may have brushed her. Well, she brushed me. She grabbed my arm. You see that? She shouldn't have been grabbing me. If you want to be technical about it, maybe should I file charges against her because she touched my arm also? It's absolutely ridiculous. It's out of control. And I'll tell you, the other candidates, they said, oh, I should fire him. That's because they're weak, ineffective people. They fire. They want to be politically correct. I don't want to be politically correct. I want to be correct.
Okay, it sounds to me like Trump is standing by Corey Lewandowski and is saying that he doesn't think whatever happened approaches anything near like the way it's being reported. Is that a pretty fair... Right. Okay, now skip number 5 because I don't think it's got anything to do with it. We move forward to number 6. This is Matt Lauer talking to Trump on the Today Show. And here's Matt Lauer's question.
Right after this incident, Corey Lewandowski tweeted that she was delusional, and he tweeted that he never touched her. The videotape easily and plainly shows that, in fact, he did grab her and did pull her, and whether you want to debate whether she almost fell down or not, he didn't tell the truth. If you're president of the United States and a member of your staff, your chief of staff, goes to the American people and publicly doesn't tell the truth in the way that Corey Lewandowski hasn't told the truth, would you put up with it?
And here's Trump's reply.
When you look at what happened, it was so minor that he might not have even thought about it. Because to be honest with you, when you look at this, it was so minor. People are saying, what is this all about? We have people in the Middle East chopping off heads and drowning people in cages, and he brushes her, and he brushed her to get probably to get her hand off my arm.
Right. Another thing Trump has been saying is that she had no right to touch him, that she reached out, touched him, trying to get his attention, that the interview was over, the press conference period was over. She was violating protocol or whatever. And he points out that on the video, you can see him retract his arm when somebody that he can't see, because all this is happening behind him, grabs for his arm. Well, now we move to CNN last night, Republican town hall, Anderson Cooper speaking with Ted Cruz about the Trump campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, being charged with battery. And Anderson Cooper said, now, Donald Trump's campaign manager, Lewandowski, charged today with simple battery. If he was your campaign manager, would you ask him to resign?
Of course. Look, it shouldn't be complicated that members of a campaign staff should not be physically assaulting the press. I mean, that shouldn't be a complicated decision.
He says he's innocent of all the charges.
Well,
you believe it was assault?
He's just been charged. I know that the reporter alleged that she was physically assaulted. That, I will say, it's consistent with the pattern of the Trump campaign.
You think it says something about the campaign itself, about the leadership?
The culture of the campaign has been a campaign built on attacks, on insults. And I think there is no place in politics for insults, for personal attacks, for going to the gutter, and there should be no place for physical violence either.
Now, what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Would you people stop reacting in there? I've got all 3 of my staff on the other side of the glass reacting here. And I have no comment on this. As you know, I have imposed my own gag, if you will, a gag order on my. Because I'll tell you why. It's not that I don't care whether people disagree with what I say, but when they don't even hear it and they misreport what I've said and I can handle people disagreeing with me until hell freezes over. But if people are going to raise hell when not even having heard what I said, what's the point? So I'm not commenting on this. I'm not going to opine on this. You can come to your own conclusions, whatever you want, but we're not through here. This story would not be complete without the governor of Ohio being asked about it, John Kasich. That also happened on CNN last night. Anderson Cooper said, Donald Trump's campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, charged today with simple battery. Would you fire him?
Well, I haven't seen the video, but they tell me the video is real, and of course I would. Look, you know, when you have problems like that, you have to act. Now, I've been, of course, an executive running the 7th largest state, and we see things that happen at time. You want to give people the benefit of the doubt, but, you know, when you see things that are pretty clear, from what I understand, the video is clear, of course I would fire him.
Right, okay, so Kasich, of course, sorry, no opinion here. Sticking with the Republican town hall, this is Anderson Cooper back now to Ted Cruz. if Donald Trump is the GOP nominee and Corey Lewandowski isn't fired, or if he is, will you support Trump if he's the nominee?
Let me tell you my solution to that. Donald is not going to be the GOP nominee. We're going to beat him.
I would be remiss if I didn't follow up. I will assume by you not saying you would support him that the answer is you would not support him if he's the nominee.
I gave you my answer. Listen, I think nominating Donald Trump would be an absolute train wreck. I think nominating Donald Trump is a disaster, and so the answer to that is not to scream and yell and cry and attack him. The answer to that is to beat him at the ballot box. That's what we're working every day to do.
And there you have Ted Cruz explaining what he would do in terms of endorsing or not endorsing, supporting or not supporting Donald Trump, were he to be the nominee of the Republican Party. At the same gathering, the CNN Republican Town Hall, Anderson Cooper continued to speak with the candidates. Up next was Donald Trump. And Cooper said more than 6 months ago, you pledged to support the Republican nominee, whoever that may be. A lot has changed since then, Mr. Trump. When I was pressing Senator Cruz on it sounded like he was saying that he would have a hard time supporting somebody who went after his wife, as you have gone after his wife, Mr. Trump. So, given that, what is your reaction to the proposition that you pledged you would support the nominee, the Republican Party, months ago?
Honestly, he doesn't have to support me. I'm not asking for support. I want the people's support.
Do you continue to pledge whoever the Republican nominee is?
No, I don't anymore. Look.
You don't?
No, we'll see who it is. I've been treated very unfairly. I'll give you an example.
Unfairly by who?
I think by basically the RNC, the Republican Party, the establishment.
Donald Trump there with Anderson Cooper. And now Anderson Cooper continues. CNN owned the news cycle last night with the Republican town hall. Up next, the governor of Ohio, John Kasich. Mr. Cooper said a pledge was made early on in this race by all the Republican candidates, saying that they would pledge to support whoever the nominee was. Tonight, Donald Trump said that pledge essentially was null and void. He would not pledge to continue to support whoever the nominee is. He would have to wait and see. And Ted Cruz wouldn't really answer it, but implied that a lot has changed. What about you, Governor Kasich? You have a remarkable story, son of a mailman from McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania. You've won one state, your own. It's a remarkable story. What about you, sir, and your pledge to support the eventual Republican nominee?
Maybe I won't answer it either. I mean, Anderson, here's the thing. This is what you have to weigh. I've been disturbed by some of the things that I've seen, and I have to think about what my word and endorsement would mean, presidential campaign. So I want to see how this thing finishes out.
It's a very, very important aspect of the campaign, what Governor Kasich thinks. And as you heard, he's being very, very careful. And he's weighing his options with great weight. He's waiting to determine all factors before providing his all-important support or perhaps his crucial decline of support. Mr. Cooper wasn't finished with him and said, so you, Governor Kasich, of the remarkable story from Ohio, you're not ironclad, standing by the initial pledge to support whoever the nominee is. Am I hearing you correctly, sir?
Frankly, all of us shouldn't even have answered that question, but it was the first debate, and, what the heck. Sometimes you answer questions, you ought to just say, I'm not answering it.
So now, just to be clear...
I'm as clear as you're going to get out of me.
You're not standing by that pledge.
I don't want to be political here. I got to see what happens. If the nominee is somebody that I think is really hurting the country and dividing the country, I can't stand behind them.
The end result here is that they all backed away from their pledge to support the nominee. That's basically it, right? I can say, pretty safe to say that, but that's not an opinion, right? That's a factual conclusion. Okay, we'll be back after this.
Rush Limbaugh, because we know for you, only the best will do.
On the EIB Network.
A little Boz Skaggs here, a little lowdown, the bumper rotation, the EIB Network. Here is Edward in Leesburg, Virginia. Back to the phones we go, the Rush Limbaugh program. Hello, sir.
How are you, Russ?
Hi.
Thank you for taking my call.
You bet, sir.
I told your caller that I was wanted to talk about being a Trumpster, and it seems like to me that the papers, and not you, but most of the liberal people say that the Trumpsters are a bunch of blue-collar or lower people. I was with the Republican Party a number of years. I was an Eagle.
What exactly is an Eagle? An Eagle is a major fundraiser, donor, and bundler, correct?
Yes.
$250,000 minimum. Am I correct in that?
Over time, not at one time.
Right, but over time.
Yeah.
Some people do it in a day. Depends on who you know and where you go.
And after Bush got out of office, I just kind of walked away. I didn't like the way the party was going. I still gave money, but not to the party. I gave to the individual. I gave Cruz money to run for Senate. I gave Rubio money, and I also gave the Ohio governor money.
Oh, no. Interesting.
What is that?
No, that's interesting that you did that. So you now, but you've become a Trumpster as well.
I've become a Trumpster, and the reason is because I want to pick a winner. Now, I also, I was a recon officer in the Marine Corps.
Let me ask you, Edward, can I ask you a couple of questions?
Yeah.
Do you chew tobacco?
No, I don't.
Do you have pictures of naked women on your bedroom ceiling?
No, I don't.
Then how can you be a Trump supporter? Do you let's see, do you ride a motorcycle?
If I could, I would, but I don't ride them.
But use a pickup truck with a gun rack in the back. Right?
I have pickup trucks. They're old pickup trucks. I collect cars.
Right. And do you count the number of people you hate every day?
Number of people I hate?
Yeah, that's what Trumpists do. I mean,
No.
we're told that Trump supporters hate everybody.
In no way. I
Really,
don't
you
hate anybody.
Is that right? Michael
I
Harrison
hate-
would be shocked.
Sometimes when some of these people do things, I begin to hate them, but I withdraw after a while. But I was.
Do you want
also
to torture everybody you disagree with?
No.
You want to torture criminals? You want to torture?
I want to torture people. I can't say, but I agree with Trump in torturing people that are killing our people.
Right. In order to get to the bottom of it.
In order to get to the bottom of it.
To stop it from happening.
I had a nephew that was in Afghanistan. He was a captain, and he was told, he went to the front lines, even though he was in artillery, he asked if he could go to the front lines. And he went to the front lines, and what they told him was, look, unless they shoot at you, you can't shoot at them.
Oh, yeah. We heard about those rules of engagement. You have to let them shoot at you 5 times before you can return fire. And if it's a woman, you have to wait till you're fired at 8 times or some such thing. I don't know. I've heard about the rules of engagement and how under Obama and how punitive and ridiculous they are. Anyway, Edward, I appreciate the call. Thank you much. A brief time out here, my friends, as we roll right on here on the EIB network.
You're listening to Rush Limbaugh.
The big voice on the right.
On the EIB network.
Yes, of course I heard her say that. What was there to say? I'll repeat it. They're asking me why I didn't comment. Jackie, our caller from Charlottesville, Virginia, said that she used to listen and then got mad and turned me off and found out that I was right anyway. She came back. She admitted, she said that she had voted twice for Obama, and now she's supporting Trump. And I said, yeah, I heard that. I heard her say that. That's that. I was fine. She said it. What am I supposed to do? So there you have it. We had a caller who said, yeah. So I've got no thought on it today. That's it. The views expressed by the host on this program documented to be almost always right 99.8% of the time. Great to have you back. It is the fastest 3 hours in media. We're all racing through the program today up to our final hour, just kicking off. Great to have you here, folks, as always. The telephone number is 800-282-2882 and the email address ilrushbo@eibnet.com. We'll get back to the campaign here in due course in just a couple minutes, but man, oh man, there's some stuff happening out there above and beyond the campaign that I would be remiss. I would go home today feeling profound guilt if I did not address some of these things in no particular order. I don't know how many of you saw it, but President Obama went to Atlanta to join this National Prescription Drug Abuse and Heroin Summit. It was yesterday afternoon, and discussed drug addiction, the importance of treating it as a disease instead of a character flaw, but also as a treatment challenge rather than as a crime. But as usual, Obama could not talk about this in an unattached way. He couldn't just deal with the problem as it is. He had to attach his own biases and prejudices to it, which transferred bitterness to the discussion. And his basic point was, yeah, hey, you know what? It's all good. It's all wonderful that we're down here talking about prescription drug abuse and the heroin problem. But isn't it interesting that nobody cared when it was only African Americans and Hispanics and minorities that had the problem? And I looked at this and I said, can you drop your resentment? And he can't. He is incapable of dropping his resentment. He is incapable of walking around without that giant chip on his shoulder about this country. I don't care. I remain more convinced than ever that this guy has a giant problem with this country that is institutional, that dates all the way back to the founding. It is rooted in what he thinks is something that was institutionally incorporated in the founding, and that is racism and discrimination and bigotry and white supremacy and all of this. And he's running around, and his wife too, constantly embittered, unable to get past it, no matter what progress has been made, no matter what punishments have been meted out to people that he thinks are guilty over the course of our nation's history, no matter what changes have been made for the better. It's as though they never happened. And it's as though the changes, even though they've happened, were made despite people wanting them to happen. Now, the prescription drug abuse problem and the heroin problem is what it is. It's been around for a while. It's been debated as either a demand-side problem or a supply problem. But there's nothing new about it. The focus now is on, how do you deal with it? But I mean, the size of the problem, it fluctuates. And different drugs. In one year, 2 year periods, cocaine, crack cocaine, go back to heroin, other opiates. But it's there. There's maybe an increasing percentage. But of all things, for the President of the United States, yeah, the drug problem is ignored when it was hurting minority. It was not. The drug problem has been on the minds of public servants and in people's heads and hearts for years. My whole life, I'm aware of all kinds of efforts to deal with the drug problem, to properly define it, to come up with ways to treat it. I mean, Nancy Reagan was mocked. She had a slogan back in the 1980s, just say no. And everybody mocked it and made fun of it, just like the same people mocked and made fun of the idea of abstinence as a way of avoiding teen pregnancy and abortion as a contraceptive. Abortion is contraception. Anybody that came up, hey, just be bigger than it and say no to it. That's easy for you to say. It was rejected. But the point is, all kinds of people have cared about it for a long time. And here's the president with this mocking, resentful tone. The drug problem was ignored when it was hurting minority communities. The thing to learn from this is that he's still walking around with this giant chip on his shoulder. And it's why he goes to places like Cuba and Argentina and everywhere else in the world. And when leaders of those countries start complaining about the United States, why he agrees with them. And it's why he further says, we've got no moral authority over anybody. We can't tell anybody the right or wrong way. We can't impose whatever it is we do on people because our past is nothing to write home about either. And the dangerous part about this is that all the people, the Democrats and the leftists in this country that support the guy, applaud this kind of thing. And it feeds this really unhealthy notion that there's nothing special about the United States, when there clearly is. It grows this belief on the part of millions of people in this country that there's no such thing as American exceptionalism. This is not leadership. It's not inspirational. This is carrying grudges around. And presidents are supposed to be bigger than that. The Ayatollah Khamenei in Iran, with whom we have just made a deal, allowing them to produce nuclear power, which everybody knows is going to lead to nuclear weapons. We freed $150 billion of theirs, enabling them to fund more terrorism around the world and rebuild their economy. The Ayatollah Khamenei himself has said missiles, not just words, not just negotiations, are the key to Iran's future. That's right, the supreme leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, said today that missiles, i.e. weapons, were the key to the Islamic Republic's future, offering support to the hardline Revolutionary Guards that have drawn criticism from the West for testing ballistic missiles. By the way, for what it's worth, the North Koreans are saying that they're just almost there. They are ready to launch a preemptive nuclear strike against the United States. I referenced this one earlier, but here we go again. The royal family of Saudi Arabia. Current king's name is King Salman. He's the half-brother of the recently departed King Abdullah. And the royal family of Saudi Arabia runs Islam. They are the official, they are the, what's the word? Guarantors? These are the people that are responsible for defining it, instituting it, protecting it. In Saudi Arabia, at Mecca, the grand mosques. I mean, this is one of the primary focal points of Islam. And the Saudi royal family has announced they want to execute gay people who show their sexuality. This is in the UK Daily Express. And it's really, this isn't anything new. They already do execute for homosexuality, but now they are making it official, and they're publicizing it. And anytime it is seen, anytime somebody is discovered behaving in this manner, they want public executions of homosexuals, gays, lesbians, transgenders, the entire LGBT crowd. Now, people say, okay, so what? That's Saudi Arabia, no big. But wait a minute. There are all kinds of American companies that do business with Saudi Arabia, starting with defense contractors. I think I saw where Apple is opening a store in Saudi Arabia. I know they have opened stores in the United Arab Emirates. And yet Apple and others in Silicon Valley and other companies, Disney, are constantly haranguing states like Georgia and North Carolina for essentially passing laws which make sure that women use the women's bathroom and men use the men's bathroom. And anything that doesn't offer more flexibility is said to be discriminatory and denying human rights. And these major American corporations and combination of Democrat Party then launch economic boycotts and threats against states like Georgia and North Carolina. And here comes Saudi Arabia, openly claiming they want to kill, they want to execute anybody they discover homosexual, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. And the reaction is a ho-hum and a yawn. Much like American feminists will try to find all kinds of misbehavior in the Republican Party. All kinds of war on women, sexism and discrimination, whatever you have it. And yet, when it comes to Islam, ignore the genuine second and third class status of women in that culture. Don't speak out against it. And in fact, defend Islam when it is properly accused of being behind terrorism. We're told to not. Oh, no. Islam is a religion of peace. Islam is not sponsor terrorism. It's this offshoot. Blah, blah. So all kinds of things are said in defense of Islam that truly subordinates women to second and third grade status. Well, much the same thing here. We're going to go after and try to economically damage North Carolina or Georgia or any other state, Ohio, anywhere where they attempt to establish and affirm anything close to religious freedom and religious liberty. They got to slap that down. We got to make sure that doesn't happen. And we'll ignore what goes on in Saudi Arabia, and we might even continue to do business with them. Mr. Snerdley, I don't know if you've seen this or not. Long-term vegetarian diet changes human DNA, which raises the risk of cancer and heart disease. It is, yes, sir, right here, the UK Telegraph. Long-term vegetarianism, militant or peaceful, can lead to genetic mutations in the DNA, which raise the risk of heart disease and cancer, according to scientists. And there's a consensus of them. Populations who have had a primarily vegetarian diet for generations were found to be far more likely to carry DNA, which makes them susceptible to inflammation. Scientists in America believe the mutation occurred to make it easier for vegetarians to absorb essential fatty acids from plants. But it has the knock-on effect of boosting the production of a type of acid that is known to increase inflammatory disease, such as heart disease and cancer. It says here, the finding may help explain previous research which found vegetarian populations are nearly 40% more likely to suffer colorectal cancer than meat eaters. And yet, what is everybody running around believing? Eating meat will give you colon cancer. Eating meat will give you a heart attack. Eating meat, high cholesterol, that's going to lead to arteriosclerosis. Eating meat will kill you, not to mention what it does to climate change. They're advocating being a vegetarian. Now we're discovering that mass vegetarianism leads to heart attack and cancer. The scientists say, and we don't dispute scientists. We never dispute scientists. From the Daily Caller, this is Chatsworth Osborne Jr.'s website, the federal government's going to start fining schools that defy Michelle Obama's lunch rules. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has proposed a new regulation to start levying big fines on schools that fail to adhere to the school lunch regulations promoted by First Lady Michelle Obama. Who do you think's going to be paying these fines when they are levied? You know, what the hell business is it of the federal government's what schools at the local level feed kids? And I know you're, yeah, that's right, Rush. You want to know why it happens? You know how it happens? When the federal government gives a local school district money, you know what it's contingent on? You take our money, you have to impose our curriculum. You have to accept our rules. And, of course, the vast majority of government bureaucracies are completely irresponsible with whatever amount of money they get. Don't care. It's human nature. Every bureaucratic organization is going to spend much more than it has, which means it's going to end up in dire consequences. It's going to be in great need. We got to keep the schools open. It's our children. It's education. Here comes the federal government, which can print money Hey, you need to keep your school district open. Here it is. You know what you got to do to get it? You got to impose Michelle Obama's school lunch rules on your entire district. Okay, we will. No problem. The kids end up hating it, bringing their own food from home if their parents think to provide it for them. Nobody wants it because it's rot gut food. It's not very good. It's not very plentiful. And it's supposed to make everybody healthier. But everybody's supposed to fall in line with the federal requirements and the federal guidelines. Back when I was in school, a school lunch cost $25. Now, this is not old fuddy-duddyism. Hang in here with me. When I was in school, grade school, lunch was 25 cents. My mother gave me a quarter or $2.50 to pay up for the week. And we went to the cafeteria at lunch, and it was different every day, and it was good, and nobody complained about it. Well, there were some days what they served you didn't want, but I mean, it was nothing like the complaints that people have now with the Michelle Obama menu. The amount of money that the federal government sent to the local schools existed, but it was not very much. And when it snowed, even very little, they would close school for safety concerns. And then that started changing when I was in schools, when this began to change, the federal government started paying local school districts for every day school was open. And they had a minimum requirement. When I was in school, the school had to be open for like 180 days. So if there was a snow day or two, those days had to be made up, or you didn't get the federal money. What that led to was school being open during ice storms and snowstorms because they couldn't afford to do without the money because they eventually became dependent on it. Anyway, that's where we are now. And that's why the federal government is able to impose Michelle Obama's school lunch rules and curriculum rules on local school districts. And it is that which leads to things like Common Core. You might, but Rush, you wouldn't miss it. Common Core's locally, it's Common Core may be locally implemented after it's been federally mandated. I've got to take a break here. Back with more in a minute.
Reveals what's really at stake in the 2016 elections in the April issue of the Limbaugh Letter.
This is a fight between socialism and capitalism, freedom versus tyranny. We're talking about holding on and preserving the country as founded.
Get ready for battle. Subscribe now to the Limbaugh Letter at rushlimbaugh.com. You're listening to the EIB Network.
And we're back. El Rushbo, executing assigned host duties flawlessly, zero mistakes. Another climate change alarmist has admitted the real motive behind climate change and global warming. His name is Otmar Edenhofer, and he's part of the United Nations Climate Propaganda Unit. And he said, how else are we going to redistribute the world's wealth if we don't enact climate change? And thereby admitted what this is all about. It's a giant worldwide redistribution of wealth scheme by punishing leading economies, by blaming them for destroying the climate because of their advanced lifestyles rooted in the use of fossil fuels. How else are we going to redistribute the world's wealth if not for a climate change? He admits it. It's out there for one and all to accept and believe. And I need to clarify something. I've got about a little bit less than a minute here. I'm getting emails. What? How come you're afraid to tell people what you think? I'm not afraid of telling anybody what I think, and I'm not afraid of anybody disagreeing with it. What I am is frustrated at having what I say be either purposely or accidentally or stupidly misconstrued, misunderstood, and then misreported, mischaracterized. You can disagree with me all day long. I don't care. In most cases, it's a badge of honor. But to have people who are claiming to be listening to the program mischaracterize and misrepresent what happens here, I just decided that the adult, mature route would be to impose an opinion gag order on myself. And that's what I'm doing today. I'm doing NPR. And you will like it. Here's Rick in North Haven, Connecticut. I'm glad you waited, sir. You're up next. Hello.
Good afternoon, Rush. Upside down nutmeg state dittos.
Well, it's great to have you with us, sir.
I'm calling about the front page New York Times article on Monday from Nicholas Confessori about identifying some segments of the Trump supporter pie and how the elite are totally befuddled in the GOP as to where this support is coming from. And I think that the major part of the article that drilled down was that there was a piece of the pie that the Trump supporters can identify with were the lost manufacturing jobs in the United States.
Right.
And that crossed party lines, blue collar, and obviously to some degree white collar jobs that are associated with the manufacturing industry. And since I'm an employee of a small business, I can identify, I said, boy, that article hit the sweet spot on that swing as to what the frustration is on the voters out there as to why they're identifying with the Trump mania right now. And I wanted to hear your comment on it.
Well, I, of course, have no opinion on the New York Times story. I have no opinion on Trump, per se. But I will tell you this. I don't believe these people who claim they don't understand why people support Trump. I think they damn well know. I'm sorry, folks. I'm just not buying into all of this hand-wringing and angst. Can't figure it out. Trump's this and Trump's that. Why these people sit? And then the answers always become, there's got to be something wrong with these people. Something illegitimate about their grievances. They just don't know. And it's I think it's all rooted in the fact that these people do know why some have abandoned the Republican Party for Trump. And they do, and they're unwilling to do anything about it, and they're unwilling to learn any lessons from what's going on here. And the same thing's happening on the Democrat side. And I think there's all kinds of people claiming they don't understand what's going on who actually do, and it scares the hell out of them. But I can't go any further than that, because I've imposed an opinion gag order on myself. If I were to go further, it would be misunderstood. It would be mischaracterized, incorrectly written about. And then people would say, you're losing your audience. Do you understand? You are blowing it. Why? What did I do? Well, because I'm seeing here and I'm seeing there. Okay, well, too many people are in pain over what they think is happening to me. So in order to protect everybody's concerns, fears, and worries, I have imposed an opinion gag order on myself on this stuff. But I'm just telling you that all of this angst over Trump and his supporters, they all know why it's happening. How many days am I going to keep the opinion gag order in place? As long as I feel it. I don't know. Who knows when I'm going to decide to lift the opinion gag order? Now, have you seen this from Piers Morgan? What do you think of Piers Morgan? Piers Morgan, he's the guy that replaced Larry King live on Larry King on CNN. He's a Brit. He's got a kind of a nasal voice. You want to blow your nose when listening to the guy. You want him to blow his nose when he's something. I mean, you have a box of Kleenex right next to you when you listen to Piers Morgan. Okay, when you watch him on TV, at least I always did. Well, Piers Morgan has weighed in the UK Daily Mail on the Corey Lewandowski situation, and he thinks that it is ridiculous. He says the video of Trump's campaign manager, quote unquote, assaulting a female reporter is ridiculous. a man would have been condemned as a laughingstock for complaining about something like this. And it goes on from there. I'll share with you an email I got today. Where did I put? Oh, here it is. Dear Mr. Limbaugh, I was thinking about feminism this morning. You remember feminism, Mr. Limbaugh? We females were supposed to be treated just like a man was treated in every job: law enforcement, politics, journalism, construction, the military, fire department. We were supposed to be treated just like the men because we were just as tough and just as capable as the men. So when a female journalist gets bumped out of the way in a press scrum, the response now is to charge battery? Mr. Limbaugh, on any given day, I can show you at least one bruise that I have. I bruise easily. I always have bruised easily. So every bump into a piece of furniture goes black and blue immediately on me. A slightly bruised arm is not evidence of assault. It's an email I got. It's not me speaking. And I'm quoting Piers Morgan, no one else. But I will tell you, there is no mystery. In fact, you know what? I'll lift my gag on an opinion to tell you one thing here. If you want to understand all of this anger on all sides of this in this campaign, it really isn't any more complicated than people who thought they were going to win big finding themselves losing and not knowing how to deal with it. And in a little bit of disappointment or anger or maybe even panic. The losing is unexpected. How they're losing and to whom just befuddles them. And so the problem is expectations. There was a confident expectation that this was the year for a certain kind of candidate, certain kind of victory, once and for all after all of these years, and then something came along to upset that. And what came along to upset that was something that nobody likes or understands, and so lashing out against it is taking place. Now, if you want to try to translate that, have at it. That's as far as I'm going to go. Back after
the nation's election destination, the Rush Limbaugh radio program on the EIB network.
Here's Shirley in Shelby, Ohio. Great that you waited. I appreciate that. Hello.
Oh, thank you for taking my call, Rush.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not a Trump supporter, but I've been watching the videos all week, and I saw poor Michelle and her bruised arm. And I just got to thinking, boy, she's got a book out. How can I get my advertisement out all over the TV and all over everybody's mind?
Wait, you think she's making it up? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I do.
Why?
Well, she's got a book coming out. What better advertising? It's all free. And Piers Morgan just doesn't go far enough when he said what he said.
Well, okay. So
yeah.
You just instinctively don't believe her.
I don't. I think it's my common sense. I'm 87, and I just think that nobody has any common sense anymore. There's going to be a lot worse come up.
Okay.
This voting. And
I want to grab one more call before I have to go. So Shirley, I appreciate that. Robert in Montgomery, Alabama, you're next as we get close to wrapping up. How are you, say?
How you doing, Rush?
Good.
I'm a huge fan.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I wanted to thank you, actually. I hear a lot of people call, and they're complaining. I think you handle the Trumpsters versus the Cruz people. I think you handle that very well. You don't make me feel bad for voting for Trump.
Do other people make you feel bad for voting for Trump?
Oh, yeah. I won't name any specific names, but after I get off some conservatives, their shows, I definitely feel like a slime ball, as they put it.
Well, don't look. That's I guess that's part of what I mean. There's a lot of people threatened here by what's going on. Now you look at this Lewandowski and Michelle Fields situation. One thing, would I be within my own gag order? Can I say this without violating my own gag order? You tell me if this violates the gag order. One thing I've deduced, I don't know this Lewandowski. I never heard of this guy before this campaign. I never heard of this guy until it's weeks ago, not months. I do not know who the guy is. Well, I do now, but one thing I do, this guy is hated. I haven't run into anybody, I haven't found anybody in the media who doesn't have vitriolic hate for this guy. Am I right about that? Okay, I've not violated my own. That's not an opinion. I'm trying to be, and I think everything flows from that in this story. I violated a gag. I shouldn't have said. I want you to. Oh, darn it! I didn't.
Rush Limbaugh pointing the way
on the EIB network.
No, the only thing I see. This will probably. No, this does not violate. This is an observation. It's not. Trump is not letting the media run his campaign. That's not an opinion. That's just a statement of fact. He's not letting the media run his campaign. I think there's a lesson there. That violated the game.